Hi, everyone. Okay, you're already having some questions. Questions to be answered. Okay. Just gonna wait for 2 more minutes so that we'll wait for a few other persons to join us. And then we can get started. We still have some more people joining, so 1 more minute and then we'll get started. Okay, so it's officially 4 minutes past 4. We're just gonna go ahead and start. Welcome, everyone. Happy International Women's Day. It is our day today. How are you feeling? I hope you're feeling great. I'm not sure if you can use the emoji buttons, but if you can, you could just send a thumbs up to make sure you're hearing us, just to let us know how you're feeling about the webinar. Hi again, everyone. Yeah, that's more like it. Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. Today we're joined by Jasmine Smith. Jasmine Smith is a project manager. She successfully transitioned from corporate communications to launching a thriving project management business. Jasmine, thank you so much for being here today. We're really excited about this webinar. We want to learn about your journey, the challenges you face, what transition, skills that you identified that helped you transition.
Anita,
and now we're going to just, can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're freezing up just a little bit.
Okay, everyone seems frozen. Hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I think I got cut off. Can we hear me now?
Yes. I'm also just happy to say happy International Women's Day to everyone attending. This is an interesting day to have a conversation around transitioning careers. It's a great day. So yeah, excited to be here. I know, and so look like Anita's trying to get us going. Hopefully you all can hear and see me and I'm not frozen. Can you all drop in the chat if you can at least hear me and I'm not frozen? Perfect. All right, I'm just trying to buy us some time. This is what I did for a living, corporate communications and marketing. So I'm happy to just help, I guess, start the conversation. I know Anita had some questions for me. I think that the organization also had been rolling some polls, and so I'm happy to also address a few of the questions that some of you all had regarding mentorship, gaining formal experience, and then also just trying to figure out like how do you get into project management. So I am going to, let's give Anita maybe like another 30 seconds. And if we can't hear or see her, then I'll just jump into my, my trajectory. I'm also happy to just like start taking questions in the interest of time also. So if anyone has a question, if you can hear me, go ahead and drop it in the chat box and I'll start there and then we'll circle back once Anita gets into our conversation. All right, I see the questions rolling in. I wanted to pop out and pop back in to make sure it wasn't me. So I'm going to just jump in and start answering you all's questions, and then we'll just catch Anita up once we get all the tech figured out. So let me see, the chat is popping and it's moving fast. Let me go to the first question. Were you able to get a role as a PMP without the certification? Yes, I am not a certified project manager. I believe that there is a need for certifications. I understand the value of them, but because of the industry that I decided to pivot into, and when I say industry, the clients that I work with, which are marketing creative agencies, they don't require a certification in project management. I do know more technical industries require that for different reasons, but I do not have a certification in PMP. I do have a product management certification, which is a little different. It's more of how do we move move products to market versus how do we move projects and get them completed on time. So I do not have a PMP certification. I don't believe it's required to be a project manager, but I also, again, respect the value. I respect the PMF framework and the process. I'm very familiar with it, but because, again, I chose to go into an industry that's more creative and marketing focused, and they just need the skill set, the hardcore skill sets that come with being a project manager. I did not have to have a certification to start my business, to market myself as such, or to actually get clients as a PMP. So that's a really, really good question. The next question I see is, how did you market yourself on your resume when changing industries? So I was very strategic when I decided to pivot into project management. My background is in marketing communications. I did it for a very long time for corporations, for brands. I was in the government at the White House. I've worked for consulting agencies, and then I've always been an entrepreneur. So I've always had to also learn how to market and communicate. And so one thing that I did the last 4 months to prepare me for launching a company and being able to call myself a project manager was making sure that I understood what skills I needed to be able to, what skills translated from the work that I did as a comms and marketing professional into project management. I think sometimes we're looking for like buzz and keywords, but at the end of the day, I think that if you have managed a project, there was a start and end date, there were people responsible for the work, and your job was to help usher the work along through the process. Your job was to help communicate across stakeholders. Your job was to facilitate meetings. Your job was to, I am huge on communication, so I would say communicate, communicate, communicate. When things were going wrong, when things were going right, I say you are a project manager. Those are project management skills. And so as I was just thinking about my career journey and all the roles I've had, one of the most common threads was being a communicator, being able to write, being able to be a leader, to lead people and lead teams, and being able to usher people. So a lot of it is us just kind of ushering people to get them to do their jobs, but ushering them through a process, knowing that we had a project plan, we had objectives we had to meet, we had milestones, we had times when we had to report out. And so I would just encourage you that if you are shifting industries and are obviously y'all are interested because you're here on this webinar, but if you're looking to change your field and to get into project management, it's not hard. Just think about what you have done in some of your previous roles. I would also say don't discredit any work that didn't happen like in a 9-to-5. If you belong to a church and you're, part of a ministry and you're one of the people that are helping to plan it, there's an aspect that's project management. So don't feel like you have to have it on your resume explicitly stated, but take time to think strategically about When did I plan and help organize something? When did I help communicate something? When did I manage the timeline? Was I the person in the meeting or on the call that was saying, hey, there's some risk, or hey, do we have the money, or do we have the budget? I think just identifying, again, what are the key skills that are the foundation of project management, and identifying those in work you've done, in non-9-to-5 work you've done, and then you just build your resume from there. A lot of it's just about framing and how you share out what you've done. So that has been key for me. I've been doing it for a very, very, very long time. I have lived many lives. I was a wedding planner for many, many years. So again, it's project management. So I would just say, to answer your question, be strategic, figure out what skills that you think you need, that are required to be a project manager. Go and look at other people that are project managers, LinkedIn pages, look at their resumes, see what words, see what examples are providing, and just taking time to think strategically about, I've also done that in a different context, but it's still project management. I think that's a really, really, really good question. Let's see, next question. Would like to know a little more about you and when you transitioned into PM and what certs are helpful. So I kind of touched on that. I don't have a certification. I have been in marketing communications and an entrepreneur for over 20 years, and literally feel like everything I have done, there's been an element of project management where I've come in and said, what's the goal? Do we have a plan? When is it due? All those kind of key questions that we ask as a project manager have again been a thread within the space that I was in prior to pivoting into project management. I do not have a certification. I encourage you, if you do want to work more in tech-centered spaces, to pursue the PMP. I think it's an industry standard, but it is not required for all industries. It's a really, really good question. What courses or training do you suggest to help the transition? Let's see, courses or training. I would just defer to the PMI Institute and see what they have and what they recommend. Again, I know that they're one of the leaders that actually deliver the testing, right, the certification. So I would say, do some Googling. Coursera is a great platform. I've used them to do like some AI random training that I just wanted to do. I would also say look into, there's one more I will share with Anita also, maybe a short list of platforms and organizations that offer PM training. There's one more that's top of mind that I can't think of the name, but I'll make sure we get that information out to you as well. Let's see, do you perform project management duties during your time? Anita, are you back?
Yes, I am back. Thank you so much for just taking over. Yeah. I was wondering if I could just jump in and help you with the questions, so you don't have to read and have to answer by yourself.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry, everyone.
While we're together, let me just jump in. So yes, we're transitioning back to you.
Thank you so much for jumping in.
No worries. Listen, the things happen, tech happens, and we have you. So this is good.
Yeah, so we had an agenda for today, but I love that you just went in and answered the questions, because the questions are in line with what we plan to talk about. So we'll just continue from there and go on. What courses or training, we just answer the courses and the training that you suggested. So they're going to send the links and they will have to share with the community. So yeah. The next question here is, how long was the transition time from start to new role?
I will say I made the firm decision to pursue project management in this part of my career in October. I left the White House last March. Again, comms marketing has been my traditional 9-to-5. That was last March, and I took time from last March, really to up in the summertime of 2024, to think through, what do I want the next part of my career to look like? I thought through, what am I good at? What do people tell me I'm good at? What am I horrible at? Sometimes we don't have those real moments of identifying, like, I'm not good at everything. I'm not good at, certain things. And so I took time, this really intentional time to ground myself and think about my skills, how I want my life to look, how I want my work life to look in the next few months. And so I would say between March and October is when I made that hard decision. And it was also predicated on the fact that I had been applying for so many jobs, and I couldn't get a job. So there was also a piece there where it was like, okay, Jasmine, you're applying. The market here in the US is insane in terms of applying, but like, what have you been doing that you enjoy doing, and where is there a need for that, right? And so that's how I decided that, project management, like, my eyes closed, I can help move a team forward, right? I understand what skills are needed. I'm super organized. Communication is like, it's what I do, and I understand how significant that is in getting work done. So I would say, I took between March and October October made the decision, and then I was up and running by January.
Okay, that sounds really amazing. That's quite a journey, which now brings me to the conversation you had about skills. How were you able to How were you able to identify the skills? You talked about communication and being super organized. How did you identify the specific skills you needed to transition to project management?
Yeah, again, I've said this a few times. I think that there are just some basic skills that all PMs should have. Communication, I will ride hard for because it's just a field that I love. And so making sure that I knew and I was confident in my communication skills was not just like how I talk to people, but also am I active listener? Because a lot of times we're sitting in meetings and we're listening for things, right, from stakeholders at the table. So I would say that communication skill. I feel like in everything that I've done, I've always started with like, okay, well, what's the goal? What are we trying to accomplish? It's no different than having a project management plan, right? Like they bring a project manager in to do something. And so understanding what is that ideal outcome that we're trying to get to is something that also applied to my skill set as a marketing and comms professional. And then I would also say time management is like super important. I think that teams will look at project managers they rely on us to help them better manage how they use their time sometimes. So are we working on the right task, on the right activities? Hey, we have this milestone coming up, how much time do you need? Do I need to go back to the client and say we need more time to get this thing done? So I think also time management. And then I would just say also being familiar with like different project management tools. So as a communicator in marketing, we use mural boards a lot, which is a great collaborative tool to be able to put up on a screen. We're all virtual and say, hey, kind of like, what are we working towards? Again, what's that objective what's the plan for getting it done? And then being the person that just owns what that work structure looks like.
Okay, so that's very helpful. Communications, time management, being collaborative. Thank you so much. Which brings us to the next question. Actually, that was the next question. Was skills the personal leverage to transition? So we just answered that. And now the next question is, how important is it to set boundaries as a woman in the project management space?
So I am the queen of boundaries. I practice them in my personal life and at work. Literally last week, I have a very big client I'm working with. I am the only Black woman on the team, and I had to remind them in a meeting that I am not here to take notes. That's not my role. So I've just learned over time that being an advocate is super important. I think that people don't always recognize like what that role is of project manager, because sometimes we do have to be a little bit more agile and fluid, right, to keep the work moving. But I think that as a Black woman, as a PM, we also just have to set boundaries with people, and we set them up front and early, right? Like I don't get midway through a project and now you're just learning that like I need calendar invites and I'm not just jumping on a call with you because you have 5 minutes because I might not. And so I think just, kicking off a project, I love to do a kickoff call, no matter how big or small the project is. That's an opportunity to talk about the work and how we're going to work together, but it's also an opportunity to share out how you're going to work, which to me is establishing boundaries. So it's extremely important, extremely important.
It is very important. It is very important. Would you say that also that strategy also applies for if you're working in okay, now you own your own organization, you own your own company. Do you think it's also applicable if they work within a company?
Yeah. And even though I have my own company, I'm servicing clients, right? Like all the projects that I'm touching are essentially my clients who brought me on board to their projects to lead and manage. So, internally, yes, I have my own boundaries. I have ways that I've created that work for me in terms of how I work, when I work, right? Setting up hours. But then when I'm on the client side and I am deep on projects, I am very, very clear and very upfront about boundaries that I have. And that even means, I'm not responding to an email at 10 o'clock at night. I'm just not doing it. That's just not how I work. And so if someone says, I had a client tell me a few weeks ago, she's like, I'm an entrepreneur. I have a lot of stuff going on. Anytime you need me, just reach out. I'm always available. And I said, well, I'm not. And she laughed. I was dead serious. But she also respected it, right? And so do I work late at night, early in the morning? Yes. But I can get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and send an email via Gmail to go out at 9 o'clock. So to my clients, they know like 9 o'clock I'm on, but before then I'm not available and accessible to you. So, and it takes time to be that confident and be that bold to be like, I'm not going to be online all night, girl, with you. But again, I just think it protects my peace. it keeps me
It
sane,
definitely
even on
will.
the craziest projects. But I also am very clear on when I need to be flexible on boundaries, right? So if we're a week out from a final deliverable and we just all need to like jump on, a call real quick, or I need to work late, like I'm able to do that. But I also am very clear that like I will decide when that happens for me.
Okay, that sounds really amazing. And before I continue the questions, there's a question that was on our agenda that I think we need to address. The
Yeah.
challenges you faced when you were transitioning to project management. What were some challenges you faced?
Yeah, some challenges. I would say one, selling myself as a project manager in an industry where project management is not so formal and structured, right? I think a lot of times when we think project management or program management, I think people assume tech. But because my background is in comms and marketing, and I also wanted to work in a space in an industry that was more creative and fun. I think that we should also bring more fun into our work. I knew that I would have to really like sell how I would help a creative or marketing team move work forward, right? Like I work with a ton of creatives and strategists. They are
Okay.
really good at what they do, but they are horrible at the communications and the management and workflow. So I would say the biggest challenge is going into non-traditional project management spaces is being able to really articulate what the value is and how you're going to help the team. I would say that that's probably been my biggest challenge. It wasn't so much finding opportunities. I think there's lots of opportunities out there. And I will also say, depending on what industry people are transitioning to as a project manager, in the marketing space, project managers are also looked at as producers. So there's also like a naming thing. Pretty much, I would say 95% the work is the same, but the language is producer, not project manager. So I think just
Okay.
again, one, selling and showing the value in non-traditional industries, and then just being able to also recognize that sometimes we got to pivot on how we show up based on the language used in the industry we want to support.
Awesome. There's a question here that asks if you perform project management duties during your time as a communications and marketing professional. I'm just going to go ahead and say yes, because you already talked about your transferable skills that you identified. So with those skills, it means you perform project management duties. That's why you were able to identify those skills to leverage them while transitioning to project management. All
Correct.
right. And now go to the next question. Do you work remotely, and how would you recommend one to market themselves for a remote role?
I work remote. I am not ready to go into anybody's office, y'all. I'm gonna be very honest. I love working
Oh, of course.
remotely. I love being home in my space with my plants. But I will say I do have a client that I go in their office once a week just to work, not even with them, because they're like, "Do you want to pop in?" And I will say I've enjoyed just some of the social interactions that happen, right? Some of the organic conversation that happens.
Yeah,
But again, it's cool to be able to do that when I want to. But
yeah,
as far as
sure.
all the clients I have now, I have 5 clients right now. It's all remote work. It's all
Okay.
remote work. So I think with remote, again, just being clear on when you're online and available. I tend
Okay.
to, start my workday around 9 o'clock. I tend to start meetings no earlier than 10 a.m. And my clients also, understand that and see that, and that works for them. But I would definitely say, yeah, it's fully remote. And I think that we just have to, it's really a personal choice and preference on how much time you want to go into an office, and if you even want to be home to work. It's sometimes at home it's a distraction, right? Because you have the refrigerator, you have these things that if you were at work you wouldn't have as much access to. Your friends think that
Sure.
you're available because you're at home all the time. So I think it's a personal preference, but I prefer to be remote.
Okay. And then there's the follow-up to that question is, how would you recommend that a project manager that wants to also work remotely to market themselves for that role?
To market themselves specifically for a remote role,
Yes, for a remote role.
just say it. I would just say it at the top of your resume. If you have like an objective section, I would just put in there like preference for remote. I think you just have to be clear on what you want and what you need. And, if it's the right opportunity, I don't know, right amount of money, right type of work, you might, find yourself saying, okay, well, I can be a little bit of flexible. But I think if you want remote, then you just need to ask for that and say that, and or only look at roles that are for remote project managers.
Okay. Okay. All right. Now go to the next question. Advice for how you handle imposter syndrome while transitioning into project management.
Let's see. That's a good question.
I think so too.
It's a good question. I
Really?
want to be honest, I have not dealt with imposter syndrome in a very long time.
Wow. Please, you have to tell us your secret.
Well, I think it was for me, again, leaving one job and giving myself a transition into the next thing, which I know that everyone doesn't have the leverage or the privilege or the ability to do. Now, I was hustling and doing work, on my own as a freelancer, but giving myself that time to like really rest and reset allowed me to remind myself of who I am and what I can do and how I want to show up. And if I find myself with a client or person, even in just general conversation, which has happened, right? I do a lot of like, let's just grab coffee and jump on Zoom just to connect so I can learn more about your project management needs. If I feel in that conversation that there's not a level of respect or interest, instead of me questioning myself saying, oh my gosh, like maybe I'm not good enough for the job, I'm like, no, maybe they're not good enough for me. Like, it's just not who I want to work with. So again, I mean that. And again, it takes time, it takes confidence, but again, being able to just carve out time. I'm not saying quit your job and take 6 months off to travel the world and figure out your life, but even if it's just every Friday from 8 a.m. to 10 p. or 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. I'm going to take 2 hours to just put on paper how I want to show up, who I want to work with. I think those are things that help us build the confidence that we need to be able to navigate and move through, especially as Black women, confidently and not have to worry about, am I doing this right? Am I good enough? Because we are. They're not going to tell us, but we are. And so I think that we have to like dedicate time to really build up our confidence in our own way.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Really profound and powerful. Okay, now to the next question. How do you land contract roles as someone with limited experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, if you don't have a lot of experience, volunteering is a good way to get experience. A nonprofit that needs some project management support, they may not know what that is, but that's your opportunity to shape what you'd want to do for them. And you can say, hey, I just want to, work on my planning organizational skills. Do you have a task that I can just jump into and manage for you? I think just looking for very unorthodox ways to gain experience. I would also say if you are employed, if you have capacity to take on a new project, talking to your manager, your supervisor about, hey, I want to like lean more into this skill set. Is there a small project that I can just take and own and manage? Like I might mess up, be patient, give me some grace, but like I'm just trying to learn and upskill a little bit. So is there something I can take on at work where I can just own it and just manage the schedule, right? So don't think you have to manage the whole thing, but if it's just like, hey, I want to work on the communication, can I be the person that is, I don't know, sending out the action items or following up on action items? I think just starting very small is just a great way to get experience. And again, it's just really about kind of building your confidence to then be able to add it to your resume and speak to it. And I think that that's helpful when you're looking at project management roles and you haven't really been in that industry or that space.
Okay. I hope that answers your question. Start small, volunteer, see how you can help out. Celicia says she loves your plants. They're very beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay. The next question now is, how do you find your voice in a male-dominated field without coming across as bossy?
I'm bossy.
Okay, so we have to embrace it.
I mean, like, listen, you can't hide from the gifts that we're given. I think you almost have to be bossy to be a project manager, right? Let me just say this, being a project manager is also a leadership role. And to be a leader, you got to be bossy. Being able to speak up and be vocal, those are things that bossy people do. So I would say own it. I own my bossiness. I'm going to use this word and I don't want to think about it. I'm not a bitch. I'm not unkind, but I'm very direct. I'm very firm, but I'm also able to get people to do things. And so that's the role of a project manager.
I really love that answer. And I think the audience agrees as well. Okay. All right. So what's the best way to identify and communicate transferable skills from project management, and what markets are great for project managers outside of construction? I think I'm just going to read a question again so we understand it. What's the best way to identify and communicate transferable skills for project management, and what markets are great for project managers outside of construction? I think those are two different questions.
They are. I'll start with the last one. I just wanted to write it down so I don't forget. So markets that are great for project management. Is that the second part of the question? I think
Yes.
every market, I mean, outside of construction, I think, again, IT is huge. Like there is a massive need for program and project managers in IT. Again, I'm in marketing and creative. So the advertising agency, there's a ton of agencies when we see commercials and brand things, that's all done by creative marketing agencies. They need people to help them move the work forward. That's what project management is. It's moving the work forward. I would imagine like even in education, I was working with a client at Howard University, and they needed some assistance on pulling together kind of an initiative that they have. So I don't think that project management is limited just to like one or two. I think that there's an opportunity for it across different industries. And again, you just got to also like do your research, use AI, and figure out like what is the translation of the language. Again, project management is not necessarily a popular term in marketing, but like producer is. So I just would say, what do you have interest in? What industries? Do some research on how project managers are used. And so I would recommend that for just identifying different markets. The first question, identifying skills. I think a few things. One, asking other people that you work with, what are you good at? What do they think you're good at? Ask your friends. If you have good friends, your friends are going to be honest with you and tell you, girl, that's not your gift. But I think also just asking people that know you. I think a lot of times when we're operating, I say in our genius, it shows up in our life too, right? So I project manage for a living, but guess what? I also project management in my house. My son sends me calendar invites. Like I get up in the morning, I kind of have a schedule for the day. And so I think, just looking at your personal life, asking those around you, those that you work with, and then also just, sitting with, again, what you do in your day to day. What are some skills and some things that you enjoy doing in your current role? And then doing some research on, again, what is project management? What's needed to be successful in project management? And just seeing how you can align the skills that you do now and that you're good at and that you enjoy doing, and seeing how it translates in a more structured project management approach.
Awesome. Awesome. How did you manage the time to transition from your previous career?
How did I manage?
That's a question. Yeah, a question from Erica. How did you manage the time to transition from your previous career?
How did I manage my time? I spent a lot of time by myself, like sitting with myself, literally. I spent a lot of time writing and reading and researching, just to understand, again, what's out there, what makes me feel good, what do I think I want to do, what have I done in the past that people told me I was really, really good at, and also knowing that just because someone tells you you're good at something doesn't mean it's what you want to do, right? And so I had to like navigate through all those questions. So I would just say like being self-aware, doing self-assessments is really how I spent my time. And then once I made a decision on like, okay, I'm going to niche down and say I'm a project manager and producer, and I'm going to just go after this type of work. But you got to just be clear on what it is you want to do. And then you can, name that thing. I'm a project manager, and then start building out your resume, your LinkedIn. All those things need to reflect what it is you've now identified if you are going to say I'm a project manager.
That is a really good answer, and which also brings me to the next question that is quite related to it, because Julia says she comes from the entertainment space, and she's having a hard time convincing recruiters that she has project management experience as an editor and producer. That's your field, that's where you're coming from. So do you have any advice on explaining that her skills are transferable and applicable?
I think that's where the benefit of like either career coaches and or resume writers come into play. I think if you can find a good resume writer that has particularly worked on resumes focused, tailored to project management, they have a general understanding of, again, what is the language? How do we reframe and reshape so that it makes sense? I wouldn't focus so much on recruiters. I think just, again, spending time making sure your resume has those keywords. And then I would back channel. This is how I move. I would back channel on LinkedIn. If there's like a company you want to work with, find another producer that works with that company. Hey, can we just jump on a Zoom call? Can I buy you coffee? Like literally send them a $10 Starbucks gift card. I have literally done this. send them a $10 gift card. Let's just jump on. I want to just have, have some quick questions. I'm trying to become a producer, in the entertainment space or project manager. Just want to hear more about kind of what your day-to-day looks like and listen for those words. Like what words are they using that you can then apply again to your resume and in conversation. And then you just got to sell yourself to recruiters. Recruiters don't necessarily know the work that we do, right? They're given a paper and say, hey, you got to go and hire this person. Here are the skills. So with those skills that they're given to go and resource for are not on your resume, then you're not going to one, maybe get in front of a recruiter, but two, you're going to really, really struggle with trying to, again, sell yourself and help them understand that like, you've done this, it just looked differently. Is that helpful?
Sure. I think that is helpful. Do you want to answer if it's helpful? Because Donnet had a similar question. She wanted to know how to also translate her skills into a resume, and I think you just answered it. So Donnet, I hope that was also helpful for you as well.
Yeah, and Anita, I'll send you. There's a woman that I have that's in my network that's great. There's also just good people. LinkedIn is a great resource, but that do resume writing, and a lot of them will spend time with you to better understand what you're trying to do. And so again, that's kind of their role also, is to also understand the industry you're going into. So they need to understand project management and ask them that, like, hey, I need someone up in my resume, but have you worked on resumes for project managers, right? If they haven't, don't work with them. If they have, then great. But I think it's really just about like framing and shaping. AI is great. I use ChatGPT daily. I would do a quick query of like, hey, help me rewrite my resume so it speaks more to project management. I'm not saying download that and save and PDF it, but it's a great place to start if you have no idea on like what translates over.
That really helps, because my next question for you was going to be, if you wrote your resume yourself, if you were able to after identifying your skills, did you write your resume yourself before you started applying? Then that was the next question, but you just answered that. So
yeah,
thank
and
you
I
very
did
much
write my resume. Yeah, you're welcome. And I wrote my resume, but again, I also have a communications background, so reframing and reshaping is
exactly
more natural for me. But yes, I did rewrite, and I have reconfigured collateral that I have that I send to clients when I'm pitching for work.
Okay, thank you. A question here from Lewis says, was networking key to your transition?
Yeah, it was. And I'm going to be very transparent. Once I made the decision in October, I didn't get any work until January of this year. So like for 3 months. But what I did, someone asked about my time earlier. I spent 3 months literally jumping on Zoom calls, doing research, what agencies would I want to work with? I wanted to work with a Black-owned marketing agency. They're out there. I found one that's here in DC. I did my first project with them in Google in January, but I sent an email. I probably did 6 or 7 calls where we're just like, let's jump on a call. We think we might have something. I had to jump on a call and say, here's what I want to do. Here's the skills I have. Can I come in and project manage or produce something for you? And so I think being willing to really build relationships and plant seeds. No one just gave me a project to manage after like 1 call. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I literally had to build a relationship. And it wasn't just like, hey, I want a job, I want a project, but also like it was building a relationship, right? Because I want this to be long-term. So networking, yes, but don't network just to get the job. Network to build a relationship. Because I think the relationship piece is what it's less transactional, and it's really about like, I know this person and I know that she's dope and I know she has a skill set and I know we have a need for what she's offering. So I would say network to build a relationship, not to get the job.
Oh, I'm sure we all heard what Jasmine said. Don't just network to get a job, network to build a relationship. Good. That is really good. Okay. All right, there's a question here from Karisani. Says, how do you communicate to the client who is resistant to your feedback and insight?
How do I communicate to a client who's just so that happens all the time because clients think that they know everything. And it's tough because we were also trained that the client knows best, right? It's not easy. And as you all can see, I'm very vocal. Like I'm not afraid to say what I think and feel, but I'm also very strategic and I also am very kind. And so typically my focus when I start projects is to build a relationship with the client. So when we have to have that difficult conversation, it's not as bad. It is coming from a place of like, I'm being honest with you because it's impacting the work, right? I know you want to go this direction, but let me let you know if you go this way, it's going to impact budget, your time's going to be off, and it's really not in alignment with like the project scope or objectives. So I think, again, those communication skills and being willing to just be upfront and clear. And sometimes clients will still want to go the wrong direction. That's not on us, right? I can't own that. Like, I did my role as the project manager to advise you on the direction based on how the project's going, maybe based on how people feel, based on how people work. And the client at the end of the day makes a decision. And it's my job is to move forward in that decision. And so it's not always easy. And then sometimes clients were like, I'm so glad you were honest and told me, let's make this shift and this adjustment. So it can go either way. It's always uncomfortable. Like, it just is. Nobody wants to hear bad news. No one wants to hear that what they're doing is not the right decision or not the right direction. But again, I think that's part of that role as a project manager, to be able to have those, I call them courageous conversations.
Indeed, courageous conversations. All right, we'll go to the next question. Just want to point out that Victoria's, your hand has been up. You have your hand up. So I don't know if you have any questions for us. Do you have any questions? Okay. If you do, please put them in the chat box. And then we're going to continue the questions. Okay, a question from Nicole.
Yes.
It said, once I complete my CAPM, what are some job titles I should target to ease into the project management?
I would just say project manager, and then add your credentials. I think adding the creds are important. And I would say make sure whatever platforms you're on, I'm saying LinkedIn, that's just where I think I found the most career and professional success in the last couple of years. So I would just say, I would just explicit project management if that's what you want to do. If you know what industry you want to work in, then say project manager, that supports this type of work. So I think we have to learn to ask for what we need, but also be very specific. And then don't forget your credentials. I think people do want to know if you have a certification. So yeah, if you want to be a project manager, CMP.
Okay. The next question is, what's the key skill that you have gained as a project manager? That question is by Afua.
Oh man, my key skill that I've gained as a project manager, I would say learning to be flexible. I think as a project manager, and as someone that's like type A and likes to be hyper organized, it's easy to be like, you're not following the plan. But the reality is the plan never follows itself. So I've had to learn to lean into, while I am guiding the ship, and it's a large part of the direction the ship goes and how organized it is. And, if we're on the right track, I feel like falls on me. I have also learned personally and professionally that like things don't always go as planned. And so it's just good to also be thinking in the back of my mind, like, what's the plan B? So I would just say just learning to be agile has been a huge, huge skill that I've had to like really, really refine and lean into and just be more aware of.
Okay, thank you. Which brings me to the next question. I think it's kind of it's a little bit tied into the one you just answered. What helped your confidence? It's from Victoria's. She had a hand up. What helped your confidence?
I think experience, disappointment, right? Having to like sit in feelings and emotions when things didn't go right and trying to like learn from them. Being able to say no has also helped my confidence. But I think the most important thing has just been experience. Like, it's practice, right? It's practice. You practice saying no, you practice exercising boundaries, you practice just being a good communicator or just being a good planner. The repetition, I think all those things tied in together with also just being true to who I am. And again, I made a list of like, how do I want to show up? What do I want work to look like? What I want it to feel like? Who don't I want to work with? I think when I kind of identified all those things, it just helped me to be able to walk into a room, to get on a Zoom call and be like, nah, that client's not for me. Or like, this is the client that I want to work with. It feels good to me. And I even know that I can walk in the room with them and feel confident because of all the things I've experienced, said for myself, and then validated in this conversation.
Thank you very much. Now, there's another question that's also tied into this as well. Very interesting question from your namesake. This person is also called Jasmine. So, what books do you recommend that helped you during your transition mindset?
I haven't read a lot of, I've been reading a lot of autobiographies. I love people's stories.
Okay.
I can't tell you like go read, How to Get Your Mind Right, girl. Like I just haven't read that book yet. But I would say I lean heavy into my community. I have a great ecosystem. I have some really, really smart friends, and I've probably helped shift my perception and how I see things sometimes, even with client work, by way of having conversations with some of my really, really smart friends. So I had a situation with a client a few weeks ago. It was a white woman, and it really kind of threw me. And I have a friend that I call. She's in the C-suite. She works for a digital PR agency. And I was like, hey, girl, I just need 15 minutes. Can you help me walk through this problem, right? And so for me, it's just been able to, like, I have the relationship with someone that I know is smart, that's probably been through this, that can help me navigate it. And so I would say books are great. Again, I've been reading a lot of autobiographies because I like people's stories, but I've been leaning into more my community and my other smart friends just to help me see things differently. Because other people see things when they're not in it, right? There's no emotional attachment. I was like ready to go and like, let me go in on this woman. And she was like, no. Let's like take some steps back. And so I think just having a good community of people that are smart, that make good decisions, that are also experienced, I would lean more into that if you're looking to like just shift how you see, view, and perceive things.
That was a really great answer. So, how do you, if you don't mind me asking, how do you build that community if you don't have one already?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, coming out of the pandemic, I know we're a few years out, but, a lot of us, I said it earlier, I love being home, right? We're kind of like in our little bubbles and people aren't as out as much. I think networking events and things are happening, but I don't always, want to go. But I would say sometimes you have to make yourself do things you don't want to do. So someone reached out to me who I met. I hosted a lunch for 10 women back in November. 5 I knew, and 5 I said, hey, just invite a woman. Like, let's just have lunch. And so that allowed me to meet new women also in business. One of those women reached out to me a month ago. We got together and happy hour, right? So now she's part of my ecosystem. We're building relationships. So I think just, tapping into if you all have like local events for entrepreneurs or for project managers, or there should be meetups for people that are looking to switch careers. Like, just be willing to put yourself out there so you can just meet new people. Use discernment. Every person is not your person, but I think you just have to get out there to be able to, really establish and build a network and to meet new people.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Terry, I promise we are not going to ignore your question. Okay. Another question, I've had more questions in the chat box than the question and answer section. So I'm just going to go to the question and answer section now to pick out some questions that you can answer. I think the first one here is from, the latest question here is from Perry. Where can I gain project tracking experience? On her PMO team, they do not handle the project's budget. So where can she gain project tracking experience?
So again, I would say if you're in a PMO, project management office, for those of you may or may not know, go to your program manager. Again, go to your supervisor and just express that it's something that you would like to do more of, and find out if there's more projects like that that will allow you to do that kind of work. I think sometimes we like to sit on our hands and we're saying, oh, we're not doing this, but we have to also like ask for what we want. And just, I think that's just a great way to like learn new skills and to be able to do more things that you're not comfortable with. And or if there's like a budget officer or someone in the PMO that is doing that work, hey, can I like shadow you? Like, can I join a couple of calls just to kind of hear how the conversations are going around budget? Because I know sometimes as Black women, like, we don't need to take on more work. But if you could just sit in on some conversations and just be seed on things and just start paying attention, I think that's also a great way to just pick up and learn something new.
Okay. Thank you. Julia, you have your hand up. Do you have a question? All right, I'm going to allow Julia's mic so we can hear her question.
Okay.
Okay, Julia, do you have a question? Okay, nothing from Julia yet. Maybe she's going to type it in chat box. All right, now we're going to jump back right into the questions. We have a few more minutes to go, so we're going to take the We're going to take just 2 or 3 more questions,
Okay.
and then we can close out. Did you take any communications classes or courses?
I have a undergraduate degree in marketing and I have a master's degree in communications. So I have formal training as a communicator and as a marketer. And then in my 9 to 5 years, just I have been in communication. There used to be an organization called, I'm going to send it to you, Anita. I can't think of the name of it right now. My brain is a little mush end of the day. But there are organizations.
Is it Toastmasters?
No, it's not Toastmasters. It'll come to me. But I would encourage you to take a class, take a workshop. Like, communication is such an important skill, especially as a project manager, that I think it's worth like investing in, a workshop or weekend class. But so no, I didn't take a class. I took a bunch of classes, and I do have a graduate degree in communication.
I know. All right. Zainab is asking, what certifications can you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be in PMP, I think that's probably the best way to start. If you want to be a PMP, and I would say that's a cert I would go for. I would say, do research based on the industry that you want to work with. I would say before you pursue and spend the energy and time and money and studying for the test, give some thought to what industry that you want to work in as a project manager. Do a quick Google, see what jobs see what the position descriptions look like, what they're asking for, and let that help determine which certification you need. I know there's different levels within PMP and all the things. So yeah, just get clear on who you want to work with, what industry, what's the industry standard for that industry as a project manager, and then build backwards. And if it says PMP, then you pursue that and you spend the energy and invest in that. But I wouldn't just say, just go out and get anything. Start with like, what industry interests you? Like, what would be fun for you, and build backwards.
Okay. Thank you. I hope that answered your question, Zainab. A question from Julia. She typed in her question in the chat box. Julia is asking what PM tools and apps you use regularly in your business.
Yeah, that's a great question. Google Suite is like hands down my favorite. I feel like all clients, people know, clients know Google Sheets. So I do a lot of, I call them workbooks and trackers, where I build out, I have templates where I'm, have a whole Google Sheet and we have tabs and there's a schedule and all the things. I have one client that loves Monday. I've done 2 Monday implementations where I've come into a client's company and like put together the workflow and framework for how they should be delivering project management using Monday. So that's a great tool. I know people love Asana. It's been around for a while. I think more tech, like people use Jira, which I think is very common. At the White House, we were using, we used GitHub, but we also I would create Miro boards, just so we would actually have a board and we would lay out all of the schedules and all the things that we needed to track. So yeah, those are tools that I would recommend. I actually like Monday. It's a little sophisticated, but I think, once you get the automations built in, it's a very collaborative tool. It allows you to see dashboards, and just like different views, a lot of different plugins, and it integrates well with other tools.
Okay. Are there any courses or videos one can watch to learn how to be proficient in Monday?
Ask me one more time, Anita.
Are there any courses of YouTube tutorials that you would recommend to watch so you can learn how to use Monday?
You know what I do a lot? If I get stuck, particularly in Monday, like Monday has a great YouTube channel. Like if I get stuck on something, I will go to YouTube, to their channel, and like do a search on or something feature or functionality that I'm not, that I haven't discovered or I'm like stuck on. So I would say like, find some tools and then just see what resources they offer. A lot of them. There's one more I'm thinking of. My mind is like, sorry, I will send you. There's one more where they actually do, I want to say base camp. They also offer like webinars. Yeah, they offer like webinars for free where you can just jump into a webinar to learn the basics of, how to use their tools. So again, before you decide on a tool that you want to recommend for yourself, or your client, for the company you work for, just also like do your research on how much free resources they make available before you make that investment in purchasing the software that you want to use for project management.
Okay, thank you. And to add to that, Asana has a workflow certificate as well. So in case anyone is interested and want to learn how to use this planner, we have just 3 minutes left to the end of our meeting. I'm going to quickly answer this question. We're going to quickly take this question from Fallon. Fallon said she had a CSM. Do you have any website recommendations for nonprofits? It's coming from 8 years of customer service, and she does lots of problem solving and admin work. She's aiming for a project coordinator or project analyst role. I think if I understand correctly, your question is that you have a CSM and you want to know if there are any website recommendations for nonprofits. You're trying to transition to the nonprofit sector and you're looking for recommendations on how to transition. Is that your question?
I think
Hello,
that's what she.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay.
All right, thumbs up would be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too familiar with the nonprofit space. I can't speak to that explicitly. Someone did drop idealist.org. That is a great website for nonprofits. I am familiar. Thank you, Melissa, for sharing that resource.
Thank you.
I would say start there. that website I have heard of. And again, think about what interests you. Like, do you want to work with, I don't know, a nonprofit that caters to teenage moms or to young women that have been battered and abused? Kind of do some research on where you think you would, like, what kind of nonprofit. Do a Google on who in your area, like what are the main nonprofits in your area? Go to their websites. What do they have? What don't they have? Follow them on LinkedIn, reach out, hey, do you have a project management need? I would love to have a conversation. You'd be surprised the amount of nonprofits and just companies that hire contractors and independent workers to come in and do certain projects. And I would imagine that project management could be something like that. So I would say just do some research on your local nonprofits, maybe even some national ones, and research and reach out to their teams.
Okay, thank you so much, Jasmine. Nicole, unfortunately, won't be able to take your question, but I'm going to send this question to Jasmine and I'm going to send a response to you. Hopefully, Nicole, if you can type your name in the chat box so I can find you, or just send your email so we could reach out to you. Thank you so much, Jasmine, for being here today. We really appreciate the session. It's been so insightful. I hope we can all agree that this session was really incredible. We're so lucky to have had you here today. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to everyone for having joined us today. We appreciate you. We appreciate the time. Can we just say hi, thumbs up, or give a love emoji to Jasmine? Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy International Women's Day. Again, what
Happy
a place.
International Women's Day.
Yes, it's a great time to be together as women on this day. So thank you all
it was so
thank you for having me. This was great. I'm accessible on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. Would love to connect, and I will definitely send over a list by Monday, a few just resources that you can share out with your organization.
Okay. Thank you so much, and bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good day. Bye.